Begin by putting a wash of black onto the beard area, and I've taken just about a dime size amount of lamp black and have put it into a bubble palette and mixed it with water, and we're going to just wash in the area so we have some darkness underneath. He's going to have a gray beard, not a white beard. I have come through and I have base coated the entire background with white, and then I've transferred on the image. And so the black is going on fairly easy. It's very important that you undercoat or base coat the entire flag with white before you put anything else on. It's going to help get rid of any wrinkles that are in the fabric, and also it will then help add a layer of protection to it as it goes outside. I'm going to put in the honey pot later, so I can go over that just a little bit. I'm putting out the first highlight color for the hat, and I have my number 8 dry brush, and I'm going to tip the hat so that it's upside down and a little bit on the side. Okay, I'm going to be coming in, and I've got the first highlight color in my brush, and I'm using the number 8 Monza from my dry brushing set. And because this is a cone shape, I'm going to be making a triangular shape highlight. So it starts out wide and then comes in narrow. I like these brushes because you can just go back and forth like this and go right up to that edge. Now this will have the widest coverage of all because this is the widest part of the cone. And as I go off to the side, I use such a light touch so that the paint just blends away. Now while I have this first highlight color out, we're going to just put in some highlights to the shoes. And again, then I let it just fade away. I'll just put a few streaks on here on a sleeve. I don't know how much of that's going to be covered up by his beard anyway. Okay, and I've taken the same color and I've thinned it with a little bit of water, and I've also put a little bit of flow medium in it. And we're going to begin by creating some lines. I'm going over on my chisel edge as I go by the hat. And we'll just pull some of these out. And as we go over here, we'll just allow some of them to kind of go on the outside edge. I'm just trying to create some texture right now, but I'm not worried if I have perfectly fine lines. I'll pull just a few of his beard hairs over his feet. Again, I'm on the chisel edge as I come on to the outside. Let me pull just a few hairs. Now that I'm going to pull quite a few over his beard right over here. We're going to let that set up and we'll go into our next highlight color. Okay, we're going to add our second highlight color, and I'm going to try to keep it contained within the first highlight, so it's going to cover a smaller area. We don't have to do quite as much work then. After I put the main highlight on, then I just come in and soften the edges like I did before. But it's very important that we don't let this grow. What I'm doing is I'm put a little bit of black in my brush, and then I'm going to soften the edges, just make sure that it hasn't gotten too harsh. Okay, and then I'm going to go into this color. And come down over here. Now you could also float this in if you want to. I just find dry brushing to be so much easier. Then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take this color and put it on the shoe also. Okay, so now we're going to go into the second highlight color on the beard. And we're going to thin this also. It also helps to put a little bit of flow medium or floating medium, but you have to make sure that you thin it with some water also, not just the medium. Okay, and we're going to come in and just add a few highlights. Keeping these nice and soft, using a very nice light touch. And we're not going to do as much work on this beard as we did like last month when I did the Santa's beard. And if some of your lines should come together, it's not that big of a deal. I came in a little bit heavy right there. We will have one more highlight color on here. That just makes it look so nice and soft, just having these little edges of hairs along the edge. I'm going to just come in and outline his nose. And then what I'll do is very quickly come in, because I don't want to have a harsh line, so what I'm going to quickly just do is come in with a wet brush and just soften it. We're going to add another shade or two over this. So if it looks a little harsh, that's okay for right now. So now I'm going to just place some highlights around. And if you need more lines along the outside edges, I would come in with your darker two colors. I would just keep this on the inside because it is so much lighter. The bulk of the highlights are right in here. While I'm waiting for the honey pot to set up, I'm going to dampen underneath the gnome. And I'm just putting a little bit of water here. And then we're going to come in and we're going to add just a little bit of green tones underneath here. And I'm going to go ahead and pull that up into his beard a little bit. Having a little bit of water on here will definitely help keep your float nice and soft. You can use some of that flow medium in your brush also, or you could even put a little bit of water with the flow medium on your surface. And I am taking it out to the sides, but there's going to be a lot of white still showing here. This is just going to ground him a little bit. Then I'm going to use a liner brush and thin that same color and pull just a few grass blades up. Now I've come in and I've filled in the stripes for the pole, and I'm going to use my see-through ruler, and this is a Microperm by Decor of America, and it is wonderful for going right over acrylic paints. And I'm just cleaning the outside edge, and then I'll come in and fill in. I'm going to come in and I'm going to shade the beard behind the honey pot and a few other spots. And I've got black in my brush, but I'm really loading it so that it's more of a glaze, which means there's transparent color. And we're going to just create a little shade behind the pot. I'm also going to come underneath his nose with this color. This will just fill in some little gaps. We're coming right up to his face line and underneath his hat. And what I'm going to do is just pull a few lines indicating the flow of the beard. And this is optional. I'm going to flip just a little bit down here, just darken this area in between his feet. Then I'm going to pick up some of my lightest color and float some highlights. So this will take a lot of the linear look out of the beard. Now if you want to take some of this color, the light color, and bring in just a little bit more with your liner brush, just keep it on that light side where you just floated. We're going to go ahead and we're going to shade his face with the first shade color. I put the eyes in, but I'm not worried about them. I'm going to just shade right over them. I can always touch up the black. It's so much easier to do that than try to go around the eyes. Come down into the little, we'll come down into the little cheek area. And now I'm going to go into his nose. And I'm going right over that line to soften it. I'm going to shade the hand. And I'm going to come along the back side too. The lighter area will be here and right here. I'll also do this hand. And this is all using the same color, the first shade color. Going underneath that thumb, making it raise up. I'm going to come along the back half. I also want to shade underneath there. So I always repeat my floats more than once. So I'm going to go back in and reinforce everything a second time. I want to make sure that each color that I put in is nice and smooth and even. This is the acrylic layering technique, whether I'm working with a whimsical design or doing a realistic flower. I like to repeat my applications of value until they're nice and smooth and even. Okay, I'm going to come in and I'm going to dry brush the highlight to the face. Put a little bit on his cheeks. I'll also come in and just put a little bit of this highlight color on his hands. I'm just touching just a little bit down on his thumb. And this hand over here is pretty dark. I'm going to just do the bottom part of his thumb. And just a little bit here. Then I'm going to go in with a little bit more full strength paint on my brush and just tap it down as highlights. Use my finger to blot it. This is the same color. Can do a little bit over here too. Okay, we're going to come in with the first shade color. And I'm just walking out a little bit. If you can't walk out a float, you can always dry brush this in. And I know that the lettering is there and I'm going to be diminishing it a little bit. But in reality, when you see things in the light in the dark areas, you don't see all the details like you would in the mid-tone areas. So I'm not worried about that H getting a little bit of darkness over it. Yellow colors are so transparent. And then we'll just bring this all along the bottom. And around to the back side. I'm going to fill in this little area right where the scoop for the honey pot goes in. I'm going to just fill that in with this color. And then I am going to shade the yellow on the back half of the stripes. We'll go ahead and go underneath the little knob, and then I'm going to float a very small float on the back half of it. Once these back floats are dry, then we can come in and go underneath the black, keeping it very, very narrow. We'll also come above the band. And again, this is a nice narrow float. Let's go ahead and come behind the hand and cast a little shadow right there. Since the hand is resting on the pot, it will need a shadow. I'm also going to have a very narrow float on this outside edge here. Let's go up on the hat band. And I am shading the hat band. Now the flower is going to come over here, so we really don't need a shade. That's going to dry, and I'm going to reinforce it. We're just going to put a little bit of shading up in here. And I'm chisel pulling it into the whole sign. Gives it more of a woody look. It gives it more of a wood grain look. And if I could cover up too much of my lettering, I can always go over it with one of my pens. Then I'm going to just fill in this area back over here. You could use your number 3 little round too. I'm just using the chisel edge of my brush because it's what I had in my hand. I'm also going to shade the back side on the yellow only on this pole. Very important to keep just a small amount of paint in your brush. So I'm loading just a small amount, and then I come in after I've worked it on my brush, and I keep my float nice and narrow. On the light side of the sign, I'm going to come in with my highlight color, and I'm going to do the reverse of this. So I'm going to pull in a float and then just pull a few over. I could always use the clean side of my brush to take it off of the lettering, or I can clean my lettering up later. We're also going to come in and do a back-to-back float on the hat band. Make sure you bring it from edge to edge without going on to the dark area. And I flip my brush over. I'm going to dampen the honey pot. And pull this highlight color in here. I'm just going to do a little triangular shape back-to-back float here. Then I'm going to pull down here. And just a little bit there. I'm going to just pull a few glints right along there. And right here. Also just put a few little glints like that using my liner brush. Gonna pull a glint down there, and then I'll also just tap in some glints coming down the pole. We can add the glints to his eyes, tap in some more highlights on his nose. Now in the packet I also have templates for the colorized bees and for all of the flowers. And so what I do is I just put the outdoor decoupage medium down, and then I come in on the back of the paper that I've printed out but with my laser printer. We'll put that right there. Now because it's small, I can go ahead and go over it with the decoupage medium. So what I've done is I've come in and I've put in all of the flowers and the bees and the flower on here. And I've used these templates. Now, this is starting to look so cute. Now, if you want to simply base coat these in, that's fine. I've given you the line drawing, and I've also given you the colorized templates, so you can either cut them on and use the outdoor decoupage medium to put them on, or you're going to base coat them on. That's up to you. But what I want to say is the outdoor base coat medium is a little bit heavy. So what I like to do is come in. So because this is outdoor decoupage medium, it's going to repel water. So what I like to do is I mix equal amounts of multi-purpose sealer with water, and I just come in and I seal over it. And then I'm going to be able to paint right over these. Because otherwise, if you were to try to do anything over them, chances are if there's any moisture in your brush, it will repel it. And I do want to come in and I do want to add some highlights and some shades to the leaves and to the flowers, and do something fun with the bees. I'm going to come in with a really pretty red color. We're going to just give him a little bit of blush on his cheeks. Make him look a little bit more alive. And I'm really working this on my brush so that it's a glaze color. You can also just put a little bit of this on the back half of the honey pot. I put a little bit of this to separate the sign from the hat. Now while I'm waiting for the sealer to dry, I'm just freehanding some flowers. And essentially I do like a little back-to-back C shape, and they're about 1/8 of an inch long. So these are nice and small, and I'm using my liner brush. And we're making little teeny white flowers. And then I'm coming in and I'm just filling in the little air petals that I created. And you have to use ever so light of a touch when you're doing this. You can use a liner brush, you can use a stylus. I'm using my little number 0 Manzaron, and I'm just going to put in a dot in the center of each of the flowers. And this is a dot of the yellow color. I also left one open so that you can see what it looks like open right there with the dot in the center. That looks really cute too, so you can either fill in the white or leave it open. I chose to fill them in. In the same manner with white, I'm going to go in and just put dots in the center of all of the flowers. I've added a lot of the elements, and I wanted to show you how we're going to finish this up. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to glaze some black over where those flowers are on the outside edge so that it doesn't flatten the hat. And remember, when you're using a glaze, you're really working the paint into your brush so it's not a float, it's just transparent color. So I'm going to just glaze over some of these just to set them back a little bit. So now I like the hatband like this. If you wanted to, you could add some black stripes on there to make it look a little bit more honeybee-ish. Now to the flowers I have the yellow shade color. And essentially I came down along the edge and then behind any of the petals that were underneath. To the bee, I did use this yellow shade color to shade the dark side. And you can decide what you want the dark side to be. I also then used a little bit of the last highlight color to the beard to shade the wings. So you can see the shades on both sides of the wings. I use my Identa pen to add the antennas. I would then just add a few little embellishments onto the wings. To the flower, I did come in and add highlights. You can just dry brush these in, you can float these in. This is with the light color. These are so small, and the highlights are so small. So you could just stroke them in, which is the easiest way to do it. Or you can float them. To the leaves, I did float the shade in. You come into the darkest area of the leaf. Now, if need be, I've already put one in here. you can come in and repeat this to make it a little bit more smooth and even. But shading the flowers and the leaves is optional. You can just outline them too, which I'm going to do. Now you can float the highlights in. And I just do a little back-to-back float. While that's drying, what I'm going to do is come in and just add some stitching. We also can just add some dashes as the bee trails. And I would do that to all of them. And then I'm coming in and I'm very lightly using my Identa pen. And it's really important that the paint is dry, because otherwise you can clog your Identa pen. So I also added just a little bit of dots to add some more shade to the sign and pulled just a few lines indicating more wood grain in here. I just very quickly pulled them like that. I added a few dots over here to add some more shading. At this point you can either use your Identa pen or your paint, your black paint, and clean up the eyes. I also want to outline the nose and then just give a little dimension to the face. I'll pull just a few lines in the beard. So then I also want to show you how I did the grass. I added just a few grass blades with a Identa pen. This is the flag finished. I think it turned out really cute. I want to show you how I'm using the flag once it's done. I created these flowers and the little bumblebees and put the pots together. And then I've hung the flag on my front door rather than from a metal frame. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I look forward to our next lesson. Until then, may painting always bring you joy.